All right, here we are. Hi. Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's Facebook Live Q&A, addressing your questions about how to deal with stressful and overwhelming situations in your life. My name is Nori Pouncil. If you're meeting for the first time, hi. How's your spirit doing? Welcome to today's Facebook Live. I help millennial women feeling stuck overcome their paralysis and get out of their heads by getting to know themselves. I am testing these new headphones, so let me know if this sounds okay. I wanted to do today's video because I've been getting a lot of questions around dealing with stressful situations. A lot of us are constantly faced in situations or with situations that can be really stressful and overwhelming. And I wanted to give you a space to ask your questions around how to navigate spaces that are difficult, how to navigate spaces that might feel extremely stressful to you and might get in the way of you being able to have peace of mind with yourself. The reason why this can be challenging for us is because most people want to avoid conflict. Most people do not have a desire to want to take things head on. It's easier that way. It's simpler that way because if you want to take on a challenge, if you want to have to defend your idea, that takes work. And sometimes people are not the kindest when that comes up. And a lot of us have this desire to be accepted, to be validated, to be loved, and we're willing to give up a lot of ourselves to make that happen. And that's a major reason why we struggle with overwhelming situations, because we don't want to deal with the situation head on, because it's easier to pretend the situation is going to go away. And these situations manifest themselves in our lives, not only in work for those of us that might deal with work environments that are stressful, but also in our relationships and with our children, with our partners, with our family members. Hi, Petra, with our spouses. And when you're dealing with a stressful situation, it's very important that you ask yourself, what is it in this situation that I can control? What is it in the situation that I can address so that I am no longer feeling stuck, so that I am no longer feeling overwhelmed, so that I am no longer feeling like the situation is holding me hostage in any shape or form? Hi, everyone. Hi. Please drop all your questions about how to deal with stressful situations or overwhelming situations, and I will answer them for you. And as I was just mentioning to you all, the thing about stressful situations is that it can get really challenging because we don't want to deal with conflict. We don't want to deal with other people's personalities. We might find ourselves struggling with something, and it can be really hard for us to address it, because when we address it, we have to face things about ourselves that we're not ready to face. Earlier this week, I made a video on, I think it was actually yesterday, I made a video on the importance of being uncomfortably honest with yourself. And if you're going to learn how to deal with stressful situation, you have to be willing to be uncomfortably honest with yourself and ask yourself, what can I address in this situation? What can I control in this situation? And then how can I control that thing? What actions can I take so that I can deal with the situation, so that I can find myself in a different state, so that I am not stressed, so that I am not overwhelmed, so that I am not feeling stuck. And a lot of us don't ask ourselves, hey, Sharon, hi, everyone. Yes, so great to see everybody. I'm happy to be back. I'm happy y'all back with me on the live. This is so awesome. Please share your questions around how to deal with uncomfortable situations or overwhelming situations, and I will answer them below. And I was just mentioning about why is it so difficult sometimes for us to deal with the situations. And the first thing you want to do when you are in an uncomfortable or a overwhelming situation or something that feels really stressful is to ask yourself, what can I control in this situation? What is the thing that I can do to leave this state in which I'm in right now? A lot of us don't ask ourselves that question, and because of that, we never think that there's anything we can do, or we rarely feel like there's something that we can do to change our situation. And if you want to change your situation from overwhelming and stressful to at ease and peaceful, you have to ask yourself, what can you control? Why do you start with you? Well, because you are the only person you can control. You can't control the person to your left. You can't control the person to your right. And if you cannot control other people, the only person that's left is you. And because you can only control yourself, you're the one that has to be willing to face the reality of what can you do in that situation. And you might be thinking, well, what if I can't physically do anything in my situation? if you cannot physically do something with your situation, then you can choose to mentally do something with your situation. A lot of us don't realize that we get to decide how we feel about a situation, how long we feel that way about that situation, and how much we allow that situation to control us and to control our lives. And because we don't realize that, we fail to take action, and we rob ourselves of the opportunity of leaving a stressful situation, leaving an overwhelming situation. The other thing you want to be mindful of is really get clear on what does it take to overwhelm you? What does it take to stress you out? A lot of people don't know. A lot of people don't know how much they're willing to take because they feel like they have to be the strong person. They have to be the strong one. I have to be the one to look out for my family. If I don't do it, who's going to do it? I have to be the one that makes sure that everybody's okay. Because if I don't check in on them, who's going to check in on them, right? So we have this desire to be the strong one, to be the one that's there for everyone. And when we're there for everyone, we're not there for ourselves. And we cannot be there for everyone if we don't show up for ourselves. And it's very important that if you want to show up for yourself, you get a really clear picture of what does it take to stress you out? What does it take to get you overwhelmed? And if you don't know right now and you are on this live and you're like, Nori, I have no idea what does it take to do those things for me, think about the last time you felt very overwhelmed. Think about the last time you felt really stressed, that you felt like the world was crashing on you. You felt like you couldn't get control of anything. Go back into that space and write down how you felt and write down everything that happened for you to get to that place. Because a lot of us sometimes feel like, hey, Darnell, a lot of us sometimes feel like we just get overwhelmed overnight or like it happens really quickly. But it's actually a collection of decisions that we make that put us in a position where we find ourselves overwhelmed, where we find ourselves stressed. And if you want to exit that space, if you want to get to a point where you don't feel overwhelmed in these situations, or if you don't feel stressed in situations, you have to start by acknowledging that there's a number of things that you're willing to tolerate to get to that place. Unless you know what is it that it takes to get you overwhelmed, what is it that it takes to get you stressed, what is it that it takes to get you to the brink of insanity, you won't know how to address that behavior. You won't know what to do to change that behavior so you don't find yourself there. So it's really important that if you want to keep yourself from being in stressful situations and overwhelming situations, that you get really clear on what does that look like for you and what are you willing to tolerate? What are you willing to trade in order for you to get to that point? So I want to make sure I get a chance to answer your questions. So if you have any questions around how do you particularly deal with stressful and overwhelming situations, or if you have a situation that you want me to look at and I can like specifically address it, please let me know in the comments so that I can answer your question specifically. One of the questions that I have gotten is, when it comes to family, how do you deal with stressful situations and overwhelming situations that have to do with family? Well, family is like everybody else. A lot of us give a pass to family because we say, oh, well, so-and-so is family, they deserve a pass. But that's not necessarily a pass because they're family. You know, you're still making a series of trade-offs when you allow family to enter into your space and to dictate how things happen in your life and to create a situation where it's stressful and overwhelming for you. Family or not, you still have to care for yourself. It's not it doesn't change just because it's family. You still have to be able to see yourself and see your situation and decide, like, if a stranger was telling me this, what would I tell this stranger? What advice would I give them? What feedback would I give them? And you would tell them it doesn't matter whether it's family or not. You still need to take care of yourself. You still need to put yourself first, because your cup cannot runneth over unless you are filling it up. And that cannot happen if you're constantly pouring into other people and not taking time for yourself, for your own personal care. And when we are in stressful situations, it could be really hard to think clearly. It could be really hard to think about the things that we need to do to make ourselves better because we get so caught up in the heart of the situation. And when you add family to this type of dynamics, when there's like someone that you really love that's involved, that can cloud your judgment because you're thinking, how do I protect my family? Instead of thinking, how do I protect myself? How do I care for myself? How do I show up for myself? And too many of us are willing to sacrifice showing up for ourselves at the expense of family, being on the name of loyalty, on the name of blood. but that doesn't keep you healthy. That doesn't keep you mentally sane. That doesn't bring peace to you. And it's very important that as you navigate these emotions, as you navigate situations that are challenging and at some point overwhelming and stressful, you are giving yourself that grace, and you are giving yourself permission to treat yourself with care, treat yourself with compassion, to show up for yourself, whether that has to do with family, whether that has to do with a boss at work, whether it has to do with your best friend, whether it has to do with a stranger in the street. You just have to be able to show up for yourself no matter who's around and what's going on around you, because you are all you have. And if you don't show up for yourself, if you don't care for yourself, then who's going to do that for you? Who's going to show up for you? And too many of us are so willing to give that up because we think someone is going to come to do that same thing for us. We expecting people to come in and rescue us and save us, but we don't do it, because the only person that can do the saving and the rescuing is us. We are the ones that have to rescue ourselves. We are the ones that have to show up for ourselves. And we have to stop thinking that we can only get that by sacrificing ourselves for other people. So when you're in a situation that can be stressful and overwhelming, just to kind of give you all a quick recap, first you want to ask yourself, what can I control in this situation? There's always something you can control in a situation, whether it is an action, whether it is how you feel about the situation, whether it is how long you choose to feel about the situation in a certain way. There's always something you can control. And if you stop to think about what is it that I can control, then you can take action. You can decide, how am I going to deal with this thing I can't control? If I can control my emotions, how am I going to change my emotions? If I can control my actions, how am I going to change my actions? If I can control how long I feel a certain way, how am I going to do that? And it's really important that you put yourself in the driver's seat, because a lot of us, when we are in a situation that's stressful, overwhelming, we don't think we're in charge. We actually feel the furthest away from being in charge. And as a result of that, we don't do anything to get us out of that situation, because we feel like, I'm not in control. I can't do nothing about this. But you can do something about it. So taking that time, whether it's 30 seconds to think about, what can I control? Seriously, can I control anything physically? Can I control any of my feelings? Can I control how I feel about the situation? How long I feel that way? And that puts you in the driver's seat. And then that can help you take action. So after you ask yourself, what can I control? Think about what is it that you're going to do differently, and then take an action to control that specific thing. The next thing you want to think about is, what does it take to get me to the state of overwhelmness, or is that a word? This overwhelming state, or this a stressful state? What does it take to get me to that point? Once you ask yourself this question, you need to be ready for what's going to come up. You might make a list, and the list might be 2 pages long, and that's going to make you clear that you are willing to handle a lot before you get to your breaking point. And that doesn't mean, that's not necessarily a badge of honor. It means that you put yourself through a lot. You allow a lot of energy to enter your space and to dictate how you feel about yourself. So I highly recommend, if you always find yourself in situations that are overwhelming and stressful, I would recommend that you make a list out of all the things. Like, think back to that last time you were really overwhelmed, really stressed, and make a list of everything that was going on in your life that was stressing you out. And that's going to help you see how much you're willing to handle on paper. A lot of us have never taken an inventory of what it takes to make us extremely stressful or overwhelmed. So when we take inventory of what we're willing to handle, we can see, like, you're doing too much. Like, this is taking a toll on your body, because we don't think about what are we trading in order to be in these situations that are stressful and that are overwhelming. There's a trade-off that we make when we get into the situations. It's not just being in a situation that doesn't serve you. It's all the things that you are giving up as a result of that. All the things that you are choosing not to do because you're putting yourself in this situation. And to some of us, that might be your sleep, that might be your health, that might be money, that might be peace of mind, that might be joy, that might be happiness, that might be I already said peace of mind, but like all these different things that have a cost for us. And not necessarily just a financial cost, but like an emotional cost and a spiritual cost and a physical cost. And we are willing to trade all those things in, because we don't want to be the person that's difficult. We don't want to be the person that's fighting for herself. But you have to show up for yourself. Is the only way to navigate situations that are overwhelming and situations that are stressful. So if you have any additional questions, please drop them in the comments for me. I'm going to take a sip of water. I think I got my cup around here. I got this cup from Honduras, guys. Take a look. Isn't this so neat? I'm obsessed with it. All right, let's see what you want to know about stressful situations. Ooh. I do want to make a note on stress out of work. I have not been in a traditional working environment for exactly a year. Exactly a year ago today, I got to Florida and we left Washington, D.C., and I began my life outside of a traditional 9 to 5 setting. And when you are at work, there could be this feeling of wanting to seem like you're the person that does everything all the time for everyone, wanting to be the go-to person. That was something that I really wanted to do when I was working in an environment. It was like out in the 9 to 5, I wanted to be the go-to person. Like, somebody needs something, come to me, I got it, I'm gonna take care of it. And that came at a cost. Sometimes that meant that I didn't eat lunch. Sometimes that meant that I stayed at work way later than I thought I should have. Sometimes I agreed to projects that I didn't necessarily think I needed to be doing, but I didn't want to push back because I didn't want to be difficult. So I did that. And then sometimes it just flat out meant that I wasn't getting enough rest. So sometimes when we're in a working environment, we can be more vulnerable to be in extremely stressful and overwhelming situations because we have a fear of not wanting to be seen as someone that's reliable. And you have to understand that you cannot help other people. You cannot show up for other people unless you show up for yourself. And you can do it for a certain period of time, but at some point your body's going to ask you to pick who deserves your attention. Is it you, or is it this external thing? Is it this situation that's driving you to feel stressed or overwhelmed? All right, we have a question. How do I know what can I control? Okay, so in a specific situation, I'm going to give you an example. There are different things you can control, but there's always something that we can control. So, for example, earlier this week, we got back from New Orleans. My husband and I went to a wedding to celebrate my friend's wedding in New Orleans. And when we got to the airport, we already were leaving on a late flight, but we got to the airport and the person tells us our flight was delayed for like 2 hours. This is the first time we're being told that our flight is delayed. We are already at the airport, like our flight doesn't leave. We were like 4 hours early for this flight. And at that point, I had a decision to make, right? Am I going to allow this situation to upset me and to take away my joy and the joy of this weekend? Because now I'm sitting at an airport for 4 hours for a plane that has been delayed. Or am I going to look at the situation as just time for me to read my book that I've been wanting to finish, right? And in a situation like that, it could be easy to let our emotions control us. It could be easy for us to feel like, why I didn't tell me this plane was delayed. I could have been at home. I could have been somewhere else. Like, I could have been resting, and now I'm here looking at y'all and I'm just now finding this out. Like, I could have gone that route where I'm angry and I'm letting anger fuel me and fuel my actions. Or I could go the other route and look for something to be grateful for in the situation. And for me in that moment, it looked like I'm grateful because now that means I have some time where I can read my book, or I have some time where I can talk to my husband, or I have some time where I can just sit here and be quiet for a little bit and be in silence. And a lot of us don't have that time. So depending on that situation that you're in, there are different things that you can control, but you can always control how you feel about a situation. If someone does something to hurt your feelings, you can always ask yourself, why is this hurting my feelings? Why is this so important for me that I'm allowing it to hurt my feelings? And what can I do to release this pain and this attachment to this person that's hurting my feelings? And it's not about just cutting people off. It's about understanding why the feelings that you have are rooted the way that they are, and getting deep down into the layer of, why do you feel this way about a situation? Why do I feel like I got to lash out on the flight attendant because she's telling me that the flight is delayed for 2 hours? That's not her fault, you know? And a lot of us struggle to find out what we can control because we want to blame someone. We associate control with blaming, with punishment. We feel like if I'm in control, I'm the one, like, if I'm in control, if I'm in charge and something goes wrong, I'm to blame. And if I'm to blame, I'm to be punished. And that can get really challenging because then you don't take accountability because you don't want to be in charge and you don't want to be blamed. You don't want to be punished. So to know what you are in control of, it means to understand that you can always control yourself. And if you ask yourself, what can I control? It means, what can I control physically? What actions can I control? Or what can I control mentally? What thoughts can I control? And how long can I do I choose to feel a certain way? So those would be the ways I would say that you can know what to control. Focus on what specific actions you can take, and then think about what things mentally can you do, and then how long can you choose to feel a certain way about a situation? How long can you choose to be mad? Or how long do you choose to be joyful and grateful? You can control that too. So that's another thing that you can think about when it comes to what you can control. Really good question. All right. If you're just joining me, hi. It's good to see you. How's your spirit today? I am answering questions on how to deal with stressful or overwhelming situations. So please drop them in the comments and I will be able to answer your question. Oh, yes. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be back from Honduras and hanging out with y'all today on today's live. I missed your faces. I've missed your questions. So please drop them in the chat and I can answer them. All right, let's see what's going on in here. All right, so another question, this didn't come up on here, but it has come up with my work with my clients before, so I do want to address it, is how do you deal with stressful situations that have to do with your own healing, with your own growth? Sometimes growth and healing can be stressful to some people. I'm not one to pretend like it isn't a painful and uncomfortable experience. Like the process of getting to know yourself and coming to terms with who you are, not who you think you are or who you think you need to be, can be extremely painful and it can be extremely overwhelming. So because of that, one of the things that comes up is how do you deal with that? Oh yeah, I have another question. So how do you deal with that when it comes to your own self-healing? Well, when it comes to your own self-healing, patience is the number one thing you're going to need with yourself. The process of getting to know yourself is all about you meeting yourself where you're at. It's about you meeting your own needs wherever they are. And some people are in a certain place and some people are in a different place. It's not good, it's not bad, it's just different. And for you, when you are going through this process of getting to know yourself, you have to be available to understanding that sometimes it's going to be hurtful. Sometimes seeing yourself in the mirror is going to be intense. But then other times it's going to be liberating, and it's going to be joyful, and it's going to be full of hope and empowerment. So if you feel like your own process of getting to know yourself and getting to the root of who you are can be overwhelming and stressful, the number one thing I would say is to be patient with yourself, to meet yourself where you are, and to ask yourself, why am I stressed with the fact that I'm getting to know myself? Why am I overwhelmed by this? And get to the root of those questions, because a lot of us are stressed with our process to get to know ourselves because we think we're supposed to be something by now, and we are not that thing. And we feel like we are missing out on that thing we're supposed to be. But there's nothing that you're supposed to be. You're just supposed to be here. So whether you decide to become a billionaire, or whether you decide you want to be traveling the world, I don't know, hanging out, whatever that is, it's fine either way. You just being here and being a part of this world and this part of these universe is all you really need to do. So if you feel like your own journey is overwhelming, your own getting to know yourself is really difficult, I encourage you to be more patient with yourself and to meet yourself where you are and to allow yourself to see who yourself really for all the beautiful things you have to offer the world. Hi, Chris. All right, we have another question. This comes from Doreen. She says, how to deal with the physical impact of long-term stress. So again, when it comes to long-term stress and the impact of that, I think we often don't think about that. And that's a really good question, Doreen. I would say the first thing, it's dealing with the stress situation, period. It's not, we want to get to a point where we're not managing stress. We want to get to the point where we remove the root of stress from our lives. And we live in a society that thinks that stress is a given. Like you have to go through stress. Like if you're not dealing with stress, something is wrong with you. I think that's the society, the energy that we around all the time. So the idea that it's possible to live your life stress-free can seem like a bizarre, far distant future. So, excuse me. So if you want to deal with the actual long-term of impact of stress, first you need to remove that root of stress from your life, because if you don't do that, it's going to continue to impact your body. It's going to continue to impact the energy within you, and it's going to continue to impact your space mentally and spiritually. And then you want to, whatever the area that you're struggling with, you want to take time to heal that area as well. Whether that's, let's say, your legs or your arms or your back or your hips, whatever it is that you're struggling with physically, you want to take the time to get into that area and do the work to heal it. Do the exercises or stretches to do that healing. Believe it or not, meditation can be really helpful to help release the blocks of energy throughout your body, especially if they've been caused by stress. So taking that time to meditate and to do some visualization, like imagining that your body is this stream of energy, and looking for spaces where you feel there's a block is something that you can also try. Visualization has been a major part of my healing, and it's something that I do talk to my clients about, that they can utilize for their own healing. I also think that if you find that you're really struggling with a particular part as a long-term of stress, identifying how did you get there? Like, how did you get to this place where this physical part of your body is manifesting this stress that you've had for a really long time? And then tracing back so that you can keep yourself from getting there in the future, and you can address it at the root. But I certainly think that before you begin to manage any physical impact of long-term stress, the root is to remove that root from your life. You want to pull that out so that it doesn't continue to cause any additional pain or any additional physical manifestation in your own body. So I think those would be like my tips for whoever is dealing with that. But it really depends on what part of your body you're struggling with that has that impact. Everyone's body is different. Everyone's needs are different. So when you're dealing with the low impact of stress, you need to be really aware about where does that stress come from, so that you can do something about it. And if you don't know where it comes from, then that's really the place to start, is to identify the root cause of the stress that you're feeling and the stress that got you to where you are right now. Awesome sauce. All right, I got a few more minutes. Y'all know I don't hang out longer than 30 minutes over here. I got a few more minutes. If you have additional questions around how to deal with stressful, overwhelming situations, please drop them in the comments below. I want to answer them. Tell me how you're doing. Tell me how your spirit is doing. I definitely want to know how your spirit is doing, how you're feeling this evening, this Thursday. It feels like the week is going by so fast. All right, let's see. While we get additional questions in, so please drop them in the comments below because I will answer them. I want to share with you all that the podcast the support for the podcast has been really overwhelming. The episode I did with Kelly, where we talked about healing from divorce, was a really powerful episode. I appreciate all of you that have reached out to me about it. And next week, Monday, I'm dropping another episode. And the next episode next week is all about the lessons I've learned in the last 12 months since I left Washington, D.C. and moved to Florida. As some of you might know, it's been exactly a year ago that my husband and I got to Florida and began our new life. And so many lessons I've learned since then, and I'm sharing them on the podcast on Monday. Oh, you're very welcome. You're very welcome. Okay, so I think that's it for questions today. If you or anyone you know is struggling with feeling stuck, with feeling overwhelmed, I'm tired but can tell myself, I love it. Thank you for sharing, Angie. You look fabulous, by the way. If you or someone that you know is struggling with feeling stuck, with feeling overwhelmed, with feeling like they have no control in their lives, I invite you to talk to me about it. I I help millennial women feeling stuck or overwhelmed get out of their heads and overcome their paralysis by getting to know themselves. And while I've talked about how challenging that journey can be, it is also a very rewarding and special and healing process. So if you are ready to take that on and need someone to hold your hand through the entire process and kind of walk you through it, I am here to help and willing and ready to support you. So don't hesitate to reach out to me. any moment that you wanna chat, or you need someone to give you a little pep talk. We all need it sometimes. We all need a little encouragement and a little love. And I am here to give all the love I can. So thank you so much for spending time with me today. I appreciate you. I love you so much. Oh, by the way, I want to show you my plant. Maybe I won't drop it. This is my baby, Yamaya. Look how beautiful she is. Listen, get you a plant, because this has taught me so much about healing, about care, about patience. And I'm so grateful for this plant and for all the flourishing it's doing, and the flourishing I've been able to do as a manifestation of it. You know, like this plant, I thought I was going to be growing leaves from this areas over here, and they actually grow from here, from the roots. So I just wanted to share that with y'all, because surround yourself with life, because you are life, and you pour life into other people and they pour life into you. So I will see you all next time on our next Facebook Live. I host these every Thursday, and I think we're going to move to 7:30. So let me know if you have any questions. I love you. Have a wonderful day, rest of your evening, and I will see you next week. Hasta luego. Bye. All right, now to close this out. This is where it always gets tricky. Here you go.